You're studying the scores in a population of size n equals to 5. 4 of the scores have a value that is exactly 1 point above the mean. What can you say about the value of the remaining fifth score? Either A, it also has a value 1 point above the mean, B, it has a value 1 point below the mean, C, it has a value 4 points below the mean, or D, we cannot describe the value of the fifth score. All right, I think we can rule out A right away, simply because if the first 4 scores out of 5 scores, so 4 out of 5 scores, if they are above the average, the fifth score can't also be above the average. Think about having 5 kids who are age 10, 10, 10, and 10. Now, if these are supposed to be 1 point above the mean, let's say that the average is 9, the average age is 9, it couldn't be that the only score that's missing is also 10, because that would mean that everything is above the average. The average is wrong. The average has to be higher. You can't have every single individual above the average for that set of individuals. This somehow has to be lower so that you could get an average like this. The average is never below the entire set of numbers or above the entire set of numbers. So is it going to be 1 point below, or is it going to be 4 points below? Well, the mean can be thought of as being a balance point. So we don't know what our scores are at all, but what we do know is the difference between each score and the mean. And so for my first score, I know that I am above the mean by 1. My second score, I'm also above the mean by 1. My third score, I'm above the mean by 1. Same thing for the fourth. The mean balances out the scores that are above and below. In fact, the total distance from scores that are above, so what is my total here, has to balance out with the total below. So this has to be it has to be a value of 4 below. It has to be 4 points below the mean in order for this to balance out. Let me again show you an example of this. Let's just take a really simple set of numbers here. Let's take the values 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I want to find my mean, I have to get the sum of x. And so that is, when you add these up, it comes out to be 6. My mean is going to be equals to the sum of x over n. So this is going to be 6 over 3. That's 2. Well, how do each one of these scores compare to 2? The difference between 1 and 2, this is 1 lower than 2. The value 1 is 1 lower than 2. The value of 2 is not lower and it's not higher. There is no difference. 3 is 1 higher. Notice how these numbers balance each other out. There is as much negative as there is positive. Here, there is as much positive as there is negative. The mean always balances the distance to the numbers below, to the numbers above. It balances that out with the distance to the numbers below. So even though we don't know what these numbers are, we do know that if we have so far totaled a distance above the mean of 4, we need in that fifth value to compensate for that. We need to balance it out by being 4 below.